Time for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. Joining us, the Sun sports reporter Jack Rosser and sports journalist Sam Cunningham. Welcome to you both. Let's have a look through those back pages. The Mirror lead with Manchester City striker Erling Haaland saying, "I've got to try harder." Erling says he'll raise his game after a drop-off in form since the turn of the year. Into the Express, that story is there as well on Erling Haaland. Order of the boot they go with. And into the Daily Star, know how Eddie Howe has said he will walk away if he doesn't feel he is any longer the right man to lead Newcastle United forward. So one manager under pressure there, so too on that top section of the Mirror Sport. Frankly, I'm desperate to get a win. Thomas Frank under the pump as the Spurs head coach. That is the story in the Express that we've touched on, and Erling Haaland's pressure on himself to get himself back up and scoring from open play as City look to chase down Arsenal in this title race. And in the Telegraph, a day of near misses for Team GB at the Winter Olympics in Italy as their wait for a first medal of the Games continues. So let's start then with those quotes from the Manchester City striker Erling Haaland, which features on the back of a number of papers. Erling Haaland, by his own very high standards, struggling for goals at the start of this calendar year. Jack, to what extent would him returning to his scintillating top form be potentially decisive in this title race?
I think it'll be probably the deciding factor if City are going to put some pressure on Arsenal, or even more pressure on Arsenal. Again, it sort of felt like they won this weekend, Man City, even though Arsenal got a nice, comfortable win. I think Haaland says as well in the pieces tonight that it feels like more than 3 points what they did at Anfield, and I think Arsenal will feel that. And having had it been so long since they won a trophy in North London, any sort of little setback or added pressure will be a huge test for Mikel Arteta's side. And I think the thing they will most fear is Haaland finding his form from open play again. He made such an incredible start to the season that it felt impossible that he'd go on this sort of run in terms of scoring at the start of the year. And I think if he clicks back into that, and there are some signs of it there. I mean, for 60 minutes he was really quite poor yesterday, but I suppose when you're a striker like that, it doesn't matter as long as you turn up in the big moments. And I thought his assist for Bernardo Silva, the movement and the cushioned header were fantastic. And then, of course, he puts the penalty away and then is involved late on as well in that ridiculous goal that wasn't towards the end. But I think if Arsenal are going to be really worried by Manchester City, we know they can put runs together. Whether this team are capable of that, we don't know. But what we certainly know is that if he's in form, Erling Haaland is capable of scoring the goals to allow anyone to chase down a title.
Which was exactly going to be my question to you, Sam, that historically Manchester City after Christmas have had it in their locker to reel off 10-plus consecutive wins in the Premier League. Is this version of City good enough to go on that sort of run, do you think, between now and the end of the season?
I think it possibly is. It's a really difficult one to call. They obviously put together that brilliant performance in December, where they were just flying again, and you thought, this is it. They're going to reel them in again, like in 2002, 2003. Then January, the wheels started coming off again a little bit, and obviously Haaland's goals, lack of goals, only no open play goals in 8 games is extraordinary for a striker of his quality, and that is obviously playing its part. But as Jack said, that was huge, that win against Liverpool, and it not only gives them confidence, but Arsenal will be looking at that going, oh, we could have been 9 points clear. It's just that kind of it's going to start getting in their heads a little bit, and you would say the more pressure they can keep putting on, the harder it is going to be. And the fact that Manchester City have been here before and they have chased Arsenal down before, it really is going to add to the pressure. But we will see, because Arsenal have come on a lot. They've got a fantastic squad now. They are strong. They've been together for a long time. Mikel Arteta's been through this before as well. And it may be the case that they hold it together and they just need to keep winning, keep Manchester City at bay, and then the title will be theirs.
Let's talk about Arsenal's rivals from across North London, Jack, and a huge game on Tuesday between two head coaches feeling the heat a little bit. Tottenham against Newcastle. Thomas Frank desperate to get a win, he says, to end their poor run of form, but deflecting questions about whether they were or not in a relegation battle. Are they?
I don't think they're far off. I don't think they're quite there yet. But I think if this was any other team that's not someone that's been in that big six for the last decade or 15 years or more, then we'd be saying they probably were being dragged into one. And I think they need something to turn around fairly quickly. I feel a bit sorry for Thomas Frank. He's had a horrendous first season in terms of the injuries they've got there. Romero doing everything he can to torch the season in terms of red cards and slinging criticism at those who pay his wages while still being the captain, and making that very awkward for Thomas Frank. And then just when the fans are at their angriest, really, and turning on anyone they can, they don't have Daniel Levy, of course, to be that lightning rod for that anymore. You've got Mauricio Pochettino this week sort of coming out and daring the Lewis family to reappoint him at Tottenham, which is really what a lot of Spurs fans will want. They'll want to feel that ambition that he's been talking about, and the connection again with a manager and hopefully a squad. But I think Tottenham, but look, both Eddie Howe and Thomas Frank will look at this game in terms of a team that's struggling and someone that they can hopefully start to change their fortune again. I think it's probably more critical for Thomas Frank, given he doesn't have that weight of evidence at the football club behind him in terms of support from a squad or fans or even the ownership, even though we hear that they're all fully behind him for now. But they really aren't far off a relegation scrap. And you speak to, West Ham are the ones that are really scrapping for survival. And I think a lot of their fans are looking at Tottenham and hoping they'll do them a few favours and keep losing and drag them down. So that's definitely not an ideal position for a club like Tottenham to be in.
It's interesting, Sam, that the Mauricio Pochettino part of the story, and certainly from a section, probably quite a sizable section of Spurs fans, it feels like that is their solution to all of life's woes, will be that Mauricio Pochettino one day will ride back into town and everything will be okay again. And he, in answering those questions, he probably isn't trying to add pressure to Thomas Frank, but he is doing so, certainly, isn't he, by, even if it's inadvertently, fluttering his eyelashes back at the club.
Yeah, Pochettino he's a reminder of the kind of last great times that they had. Obviously that hugely exciting team, and you had kind of Harry Kane and Dele Alli, and just there's some great memories for Spurs fans. So he is one that they kind of do in certainly in recent history hark back to, and it certainly doesn't help when he's as you say fluttering his eyelashes at Spurs, and it certainly doesn't help when the fans are chanting his name as well. I'm sure that after the World Cup, Pochettino would love a crack at Spurs again, and certainly Frank is under a lot of pressure at the moment. I think West Ham, the way they rallied, they are sort of sucking teams back in. I think quite a few teams felt they were safe, and then West Ham have started to putting together some results, putting points on the board, and there's a few now looking there, and Spurs being one of them, going, we could actually get sucked into this if we're not careful, where 4 weeks ago they might have thought we'll be fine because the bottom three are doing so badly, and Spurs just can't contemplate a relegation battle. It just shouldn't be on their radar.
And given that, Jack, and if it was to continue for a couple more weeks, do you think there is a scenario where we could see the flip of what happened last year, where they put all of their eggs in the Europa League basket to try and win that competition and sacrifice the league, that they might have to almost sacrificed the round of 16 in the Champions League to concentrate on getting themselves enough points to see them over the line.
Yeah, I don't think they can have serious ambitions of going too far in the Champions League this season. They obviously did well in the new group phase that we've got and finished in that top 8, but really you can't be sacrificing anything in terms of the Premier League this time around. Last year, Tottenham were in a position really where the 3 promoted clubs were so poor that anyone who was struggling above them was still going to be safe, still had more than enough quality to stay up. With what Sunderland have done this season, the way Leeds are playing as well, you can't risk that as a manager of an established club. And as much as it will pain supporters, players to not give their all in the Champions League, you'd never accuse them of not doing that. But they'll have to think very carefully about how those games impact what they do in the Premier League, because it could reach a point. I still think West Ham will be the ones that go. I think they've left it too late, and I don't know how much of a proper fight back they've got in them. I still think there's a danger that if they become a bit too complacent, that they could slip into some trouble, Tottenham, and that it would be absolutely astonishing. It'd be a great story. It'd be entertaining for a lot of neutral fans to see a big club in that mess, especially after the Super League stuff from a few years ago. But as Sam said, it's something they can't contemplate. It'd be an absolute disaster for that club.
Let's look at their next opponents, Newcastle, then. Sam, Know-how is the back of the star. Defiant Eddie is sure he's the right man for the job and said that if he didn't believe he was, Eddie Howe would walk away from Newcastle. How concerned are you, or how concerned do you think Newcastle fans should be with what they're watching at the moment?
I think they should be concerned, but they have been through an incredibly difficult period, and they've still got more difficult games to come. And I think Eddie Howe, he's very calm, he's very considered. I think he says things at the right time, and I think in this situation, he can see the wider picture of how hard the games have been, to put the kind of the poor form into a little bit of perspective. You know, he's been at the club for 4.5 years. He's set very, very high standards, qualified for the Champions League, obviously winning the League Cup, and he will know that he still has to live up to those standards. But he's got a lot of credit in the bank, even though the fans have started getting a little bit on his back and questioning him a bit, which is always going to happen at any football club that goes on a poor run of form, especially one that is expecting to be competing at the top of the end of the table. But I do think that I would back Eddie Howe to turn things around. I think he's got so much experience now. And he really knows the club. He knows the club so well. He knows the players well. He knows the owners well. I think they will. They'll all be on the same page as it stands. Albeit he is going to have to turn things around to make sure that he stops this recent slide.
This is not the half an hour for Premier League managers just hoping to relax a little bit before they turn in for the night. Let's move on to Sean Dyche in the Telegraph. Jason Burt and John Percy. Dyche's Forest future in doubt. The quotes that amuse me slightly, Jack. I don't think over one game it's going to be that extreme where the owner is suddenly going to say we need to change everything at the club for a 4th time. I'm assuming he's met the owner.
Yeah, it's a brave gamble to take, say that. I think, you mentioned it's not a great half an hour for some Premier League managers. I think it might be slightly better for Eddie Howe and Sean Dyche, just because I think any Newcastle fan questioning Eddie Howe quickly is absolutely ludicrous. He's exactly the man you want in this. And I think Sean Dyche, for what Forest need over the end of this season, look, I've seen them at a couple of games in person recently, and they were really quite poor. But I think, who else are you going to turn to in this situation to lift them up and get them going again? Sean Dyche is someone that's been in these scraps time and time again, and will know what he needs from a team, from a squad, from individual players to get them over the line in terms of their Premier League safety. As I mentioned, I think, West Ham can close the gap. They have closed the gap to Forest, and the defeat to Leeds was worrying, but Forest went there and, despite playing poorly against West Ham, managed to get a result. And it looks like, compared to their closest rivals for relegation, Forest have a few more players that on any given day can step up and deliver for a team. Players like Hudson-Odoi, Morgan Gibbs-White, Elliot Anderson as well, being one of those that can really influence a game for you. And while at West Ham you've got Somerville coming back into form, Fernandes as well, Bowen scoring again, I think Forest have got the higher level of quality to get them over the line, and I think Sean Dyche is perfectly capable of having the level head to see them through this, even though there have been a couple of dodgy results. And maybe he's someone that even Marinakis might be a bit afraid to take on in a post-match debrief.
It's interesting though, isn't it, Sam? Because short term may be okay, but medium term, you get the sense he is not there for a long period of time. Dyche, he was given quite a short contract when he was appointed, and you do get the sense that Marinakis will be looking for another appointment. He's not like part of some sort of 5-year plan, Sean Dyche, you get the sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating that Dyche was, he's just been shortlisted for Premier League Manager of the Month for January. Huge win against West Ham. They obviously had that goalless draw with Arsenal, where they didn't have a single shot on target, but still came away with a point. And so he, like Sean said today, he's gone from being this amazing manager to being on the brink. I mean, he will be aware that the pressure is there, but as Jack said, there's probably no one better equipped to deal with this challenge than he is. Longer term, I think I think Sean Dyche would believe and be confident that he could take Forest and take them up the table. He has actually proven that he can do that before. But I feel like Marinakis will have other ideas, and in the summer will be considering his options, especially depending how close they are to relegation. But there's still a long way to go in the season. If Sean Dyche can get them back playing the way they were playing when he was shortlisted for Manager of the Month a month ago, and even previously to that, he obviously started very well as well, then you could see him taking them back up the table now. But yeah, if they are very close to relegation, I still don't think that sacking another manager this season is the right solution to the problem.
Well, one manager who can probably just about afford to stick around for part two is Liam Rosenior. Good start to life as Chelsea head coach for him. We'll talk about that after the break. And also a look at the Winter Olympics, where teenager Mia Brooks comes oh so close to a fabulous medal in Milan Cortina. Thomas Frank says Spurs are desperate to end their winless run, but deflects questions about the prospect of a relegation battle. Jack Grealish confirms his season is over after surgery on his foot, ruling out any chance of a World Cup call-up. Welcome back to Back Pages tonight. The Sun sports reporter Jack Rosser and sports journalist Sam Cunningham with us this evening. Let's get into The Guardian and the Chelsea head coach Liam Rosenior saying that some of the criticism in the early stages of his tenure at Stamford Bridge has affected his family. The nickname LinkedIn Liam, part of what has been levelled at him on social media, which he's picked up because of his teenage children. Has some of it been a fraction unfair, Sam, and is he responding in the best way at the moment with some encouraging results and performances so far?
I think it's been very unfair, to be honest. It's horrible to hear Liam Rosenior saying that his teenage sons have been reading social media, seeing the abuse, seeing the jokes and the mockery. And to think it couldn't have gone much better for him at the start of the start of his Chelsea reign. You know, he's been winning games, kind of turned things around when he went in from the form they had before, and for purely the fact that it seems to be sort of on his appearance, how he looks, and his mannerisms. Perhaps the fact that he wears glasses like I do, and it seems to be that it's become a bit of a joke on the internet, and it's obviously affecting him. And I think he's done the right thing by talking about it and addressing it, actually, because I think to get that out there, just to let people know that this is affecting him and his family, it sort of takes it to that level of saying this isn't acceptable and that people should stop. And maybe it will make people sit up and think, actually, I may be making a joke, but he's got kids and they're reading this and they might be able to put themselves in his position. And I think the only thing he can do is to keep doing what he is doing, keep winning games. He's shown early on that he's been brilliant. Tactically, if he's getting things slightly wrong, he's made some great changes at half time. He sort of turned games that could have been defeats into wins. And I feel that if he can keep this going, then the jokes will fall away, because he'll be the one who's winning games and doing what the fans want.
Let's just have a reference, Jack, of a small picture on your back page tonight of Jack Grealish in his hospital bed, season over, sadly, after an injury against his former club, Aston Villa. He always felt a little bit of an outside shot for Thomas Tuchel's World Cup squad. I guess the actual question is where you think Jack Grealish might be come the start of next season, because obviously this has been a loan spell that's now come to an end at Everton.
Yeah, it's a very hard question, really, isn't it? Because it's not worked out how I think everyone in football would have liked this loan move to work out. It was a £100 million player, a highly paid, highly regarded player, really taking a step down from Manchester City, convinced by David Moyes to go to Everton, made a bright start as well, and then just never really managed to kick on from there. Grealish is a player that I think every England fan would love to see in form and in Thomas Tuchel's squad, just for the sort of dynamic element he brings to games. He's loved by a lot of fans across the country, regardless of who they support, for the way he behaves, the way he plays, the element of surprise and the X factor that he brings to games. So for his season to peter out and then end in January because of an injury, and of course it would be back at Aston Villa where he picks it up, is desperately sad. And I think it's a hard one to work out, because if he'd scored 10 and laid on 10 assists before now, I think Everton would simply not hesitate about going back and taking Jack Grealish. But in a world where now clubs of that stature have to be so careful in terms of their spending, their PSR or squad cost ratio, as it's going to be from this summer onwards, that's a big chunk of your budget to invest in a player that you're not sure of, will obviously then be coming back from an injury and surgery. So any club that takes Grealish is going to be taking a gamble next season.
Let's just show you. We haven't quite got time to talk to the chaps about it on the back page of the Times and also on the Telegraph. Those two very near misses for Team GB in the Winter Olympics in Milan Cortina. 19-year-old Mia Brooks, who went for the big final jump in the snowboard big air and finished fourth in the end, and also a fourth place finish for Kirsty Muir in the freestyle slope style event. So no medals as yet for Team GB, but hopefully some will come soon. Sam, Jack, thank you very much indeed for your company. As ever, if you've missed any of the show, you can catch up on the back pages at hour and also the podcast as well. Coming up with us, top of the shops, Middlesbrough move past Coventry after victory at Sheffield United.